I'm a photographer, visual artist, and I've been at Bemis. I came here on the 23rd of August, and I am leaving on September the 30th. I've always been fascinated by portraits, and I spent a lot of time, my mom was quite artsy, so I spent a lot of time when I was a kid in museums and art galleries. So I decided I wanted to go to art school, and I wanted to be a portrait painter, and it was right around the time of David Hockney and that whole British movement of artists. And my first year, I just wasn't good enough. I didn't think I was good enough. So somehow or another, I morphed into photography. You know, I was in college and I started doing portraits of friends and walking around on the streets, doing portraits of people in the park and, you know, in the neighborhood I lived in, and portraits of kids that were at the youth club, which may have been some of my first youth subculture portraits. One day I walked into, there was a weekly music paper called Sounds, and I walked in there with my little portfolio. And the editor at the time was this woman, Vivian Goldman, who's actually a really good friend of mine to this day. She's a great writer. And she was just like, "Oh, I like your work. What are you doing tonight? Can you go and take a picture of Susie and the Banshees? They're playing at the Roundhouse." So off I trotted, and I took pictures of this guy, Spiz, who had a group called Spiz Oil. And then, like, later that evening, I went to shoot Susie and the Banshees. And she was like, "Oh, these are good. What are you doing tonight?" And she gave me another job. And, so it went on. And in the end, we both ended up moving to Melody Maker, which was a rival music paper. It was the dawn of punk, really, right around 76, 77. Finally, people speaking out and going, "We're done with this, and fuck all that, and fuck the Queen." And it was quite shocking for everybody. One day I walked into the office of Rush, which was a management company that managed Run DMC, and I guess, they ended up managing the Beastie Boys and all of that. And there was Leo Cohen. And I'm just sitting there going, "I've come to show my portfolio to you." So he looks at my work, and then, next week he sends LL Cool J over, and he turns up to my studio, and he turns up with a radio, so I take the picture of him with his boombox, and, so it went on. Then they liked that, then they send over Slick Rick, and soon enough, I was working for Def Jam and Profile. I wasn't really aware that I was identifying urban life. I was just photographing things that I loved. And, I like the idea of photographing, call it rebel culture, whatever, just people doing things out of a passion that they have. So I came really to Bemis. My idea was to do a portrait of the people of North O, and, a street portrait. Here, there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of street life from what I have found. So the first week I was a little frustrated by all that, but then I figured, it's Labor Day, it's a town in the Midwest, it's got to have a Labor Day parade. So I went to the Labor Day parade, and frankly, it was just great. There's every man there. I mean, Vietnam vets on their floats, and the little drill teams, and the cheerleader girls, and the little, football kids, and the union people, of course, and the firemen, and it was just incredible. It just seemed like the whole of Omaha had turned out for this parade, and the people sitting around watching, they sit on the curb and watch, and people throw candy off the floats, and the little kids are running around screaming and picking up candy. It was just really fun, and I must have been there for about 5 hours, and I just captured so many different faces. It was like super exciting for me. Digital is great, but I don't really use Photoshop very much. I try to just do minimal, I'm not above like pushing up the contrast a little bit or something, and it's great. It can pull things out of a shot if you're shooting in a dark situation. It's great for that. And I'm not one to do, endless Photoshop. I mean, I understand everyone wants to look good, but I don't really approve of that, because everybody starts looking like Barbie dolls and robots. And, if you're 40, you can't look like a 20-year-old, and that really is just the end of that. So I'm not, I'm not far down with that. My portraits are really a collaboration between me and the subject, always have been, always will be, and I'm not that egotistical, so I'm just always happy to meet new people and find out about their lives.